This video will present irrefutable and scientific proof that will establish beyond any reasonable doubt that Michelle Obama is in fact a man who prefers to present himself and who prefers to dress up as a woman. This video will prove that the person commonly referred to as the First Lady of the United States may be the First Queen at best, but he most certainly is not a lady. Let's find out why. This video will examine the following. It will examine Michelle's male hands, male shoulders, male torso, male genitalia, and overall male proportions. It will also look at how a carefully designed wardrobe, a wide hairdo, a persistent facially distorting smile, and carefully selected press photos have all succeeded in suppressing the revelation of Michelle's undeniable male physical form. While this information is controversial and shocking to say the least, it is being shared because it is the truth. It is being presented so that people can stop living the lie that is being dished out by the U.S. government and the mainstream media. Many people are unfamiliar with the more subtle physical differences that can be found between men and women. While Michelle Obama works very hard to distort the more obvious differences, he fails miserably at hiding them all. Let's take a close look at some of the male traits that he has failed to conceal. We will begin by looking at the hands. The scientific community has known for a long time that a man's ring finger is typically longer than the man's index finger. Here are two clear pictures that illustrate the differences in ring finger proportions on male and female hands. Notice how the man's ring finger is visibly longer than his index finger. While it is not uncommon for a woman to have the ring finger and index finger at very similar lengths, it is almost unheard of for a woman to have a visibly longer ring finger. See for yourself by looking at both of your hands. Relax your hands. Put them flat on a table. Pull the fingers together and notice the length of your ring finger. Now compare it to the length of your index finger. Your hands will now testify against Michelle Obama every time you look at them. If we look at this X-ray of a man's hands, we can see how the bone structure of the ring finger is visibly longer than that of the index finger. If we look at an X-ray of a woman's hand, we can easily see that the tip of the ring finger appears to be slightly shorter than the index finger. In this photo of Barack and Michelle's right hands, even at a distance, Michelle's ring finger is noticeably longer than the index finger. In fact, the ring finger is so long that when we compare it with the one on the man next to him, it is easy to see that the male trait of prominent ring finger length is even more pronounced in Michelle. Here we see a person holding up their hand. By the ring finger length, it is safe to conclude that he is a man. Here we see someone whose ring finger length clearly shows that she was born a female. But in this photo, wait a minute, Houston, we have a problem. The ring finger is noticeably longer than the index finger, proving that Serena Williams, the famous tennis player, was in fact born a male. Both the shoulders and flamboyant behavior are quite telling as well. Here is a good photo of Michelle's hands. The ring fingers are both visibly longer than the index fingers. Once again, we have a clear view of the hands. It is undeniable. Those are the hands that emerged from the womb on a male child. Now that we have established that Michelle has the hands of a man, let's look at Michelle's shoulders. The shoulders are surrounded by bulging muscles that appear to be very masculine. Notice how the carefully tailored clothing hides the neck muscles. Let's find out why. Both the neck muscles and the bulging shoulders look like they belong on a man. In this photo, the hair and the clothing both serve to camouflage the neck muscles. Michelle's face may appear quite feminine to the undiscerning eye, but after taking a closer look, isn't it amazing what the very best makeup artists and hairstylists can do to any person who has enough money? And to help add to the illusion, Michelle often slouches forward. This is done to make the shoulders appear smaller, but the masculine shoulders remain. Wild hair and dangling earrings can pull the eye away from the shoulders, but once you have spotted them, they just don't seem to go away. To make matters worse, men have more prominent brow features than women. As you can see, Michelle's eyebrows are generally painted on in such a way that they wrap around the male skull bone that protrudes out at the eyebrows. Close-up images of the eyebrows reveal a tremendous effort at wrapping the paint all the way around this very prominent male facial feature. Once again, the painted eyebrows do not match the size of the brow bone. Now, what most people do not know about human anatomy is that the body is naturally proportioned based on the ratio between overall body height and the size of a person's head. In this illustration, you can see how perfectly proportioned a typical human body of each gender is. This illustration also reveals a description of how the shoulders are measured. On a woman's body, the shoulder width is typically equivalent of 2.5 times the width of her head. Here we have an example of a healthy woman. As you can clearly see, her shoulders are about 2.5 times the width of her head. A man's shoulders are typically the equivalent of 3 times the width of his head. In this illustration, it is easy to see that this person is in fact a man based on the width of his shoulders in relation to the width of his head. And here we have an image of an extremely athletic man whose gender is confirmed by the width of his shoulders in relation to the width of his head. Now, if we take an objective look at Michelle, we see that the shoulder width is not compatible with the shoulders of a woman in relation to the size of the head. The dress, the pearls, the fancy hairdo, and makeup can redirect the observer's attention away from the proportions, but all the illusions cannot make the physical reality that Michelle is a man go away. Now let's take a closer look at Michelle's body proportions. Notice in this illustration that the height of a typical healthy man is roughly 8 times the height of his head. The height of a typical healthy woman is roughly 7 times the height of her head. This illustration reveals that Michelle stands at 8 heads tall. At this point in human history, there is no amount of surgery that can change his body proportions. His overall height is exactly 8 times the height of his head, proving that Michelle cannot possibly be a woman. The jacket was carefully chosen to diminish the manly appearance of the shoulders. Notice how there is a wide gap at the waist to create an optical illusion that the hips are wider than the shoulders. Michelle is also wearing flat shoes. He does not tend to wear high heels because if he did, while standing at 5 feet 11 inches tall, he would tower over almost all of the women as well as most of the men who are standing nearby. Here we can see Michelle standing next to a woman. Notice how the woman's shoulders on the far left are no match for Michelle's man shoulders. There are many tricks of the eye going on in those dresses. Someone has added a few pounds of necklaces to downplay the bulging shoulder muscles. It is easy to see how Michelle arches his shoulders forward to help with the illusion just a little bit more. This illustration reveals how the hip and shoulder proportions are naturally different between men and women. While men's hips are smaller than their shoulders, a woman's proportions tend to be the opposite. I am not able to show you an image of Michelle at the beach. However, when Serena Williams appears on a beach walking next to an actual woman, it is quite easy to see the physical differences between the body structure of a man and a woman. Even when a man has breasts that are formed by hormone replacement therapy, the hip bones remain much narrower than the shoulders. It is interesting to note that Serena's thin upper body and heavier lower torso are almost identical to Michelle's. So how then is it possible for Michelle to pose next to a man and appear to have female body proportions? Simply by turning the shoulders away from the camera, the shoulders appear to be narrower. Notice the difference when the shoulders are square to the camera. In this photo, we can see Michelle turning the shoulders away from the camera, and then simply by bending the wrist while relaxing the biceps, the upper arms appear to be more feminine. But look at what happens when the shoulders are square to the camera and the man arms are plain to see. The wild hair and stacked up jewelry can only do so much to distract you from the uncomfortable truth. The biceps are fully flexed because they are now carefully concealed under a custom-tailored jacket with exaggerated shoulder pads that make the arms appear smaller. It is quite an effective illusion. But when Michelle is put next to a real woman, the male features simply jump out of the photo. In order to trick the eye into perceiving the illusion of wider hips, Michelle typically wears dresses that are tight above the upper waist but then flare out at the hips. In this image, we can see why Michelle will most likely avoid a simple V-neck in the future. A square front view reveals the broad shoulders and the neck muscles, but the super wide hairstyle creates the illusion of smaller shoulders, and the stacked up jewelry steers the eye away from those massive neck muscles. But in this image, there is a convincing first impression that these two people are both women. And so how do they present the illusion that they are both female? It is really quite simple. The woman wears a loose shirt and tight pants, while Michelle wears a tight shirt and loose pants. Add a few feminine externals, and there you have your illusion. In this image, it is quite easy to see just how large Michelle's shoulders and neck muscles are, especially when compared with the ones Barack has hidden under his suit jacket with the padded and extended shoulders. The bulging muscles under the big hair were perhaps the inspiration for this image that has been circulating on the web. So apparently, I'm not the only person who knows that Michelle is a man, and a very strong man at that, I might add. You will not find many pictures like this one because when Michelle frowns, the fact that he is a man frowning becomes very plain to see. And when Michelle drops the charade, the feminine false externals drop like a lead balloon. My, what a very feminine and slender neck you have. I wish I had one like that. The manly features often stand out like a sore thumb when the guard is let down and the photo is unexpected. Let's not forget the Adam's apple. What most people don't know is that the appearance of the Adam's apple can be diminished through surgery, but it cannot be fully removed. In this image, you can clearly see Michelle's Adam's apple. Once again, Michelle's Adam's apple is not too difficult to spot. The Adam's apple stands out in this earlier photo as well. Notice the bulging neck muscles and heavy man brows, even on the wedding day. Speaking of the wedding day, you must be wondering what happened to Michelle's male genitalia. There are certain undergarments that some people wear in order to hide their male genitalia. It is similar to a sports cup that men wear while playing contact sports. In this photo, you can see a surprising bulge that appears to be Michelle's special cup. This wardrobe malfunction was revealed by the wind that was blowing against him, revealing the contour of his form. But that's not the only wardrobe malfunction. In this picture, the lighting cast the most unfeminine shadows on Michelle's manhood. This photo begs the question, how could the audience not notice? In this earlier wedding photo, Michelle's body proportions are a close match to Barack's. Years of hormone replacement therapy may provide a touch of extra fat in certain areas, or a more feminine-looking skin tone, or change the voice a bit, but there is no amount of hormones or feminine gestures that will change the skeletal proportions of a man. Michelle's body structure cannot possibly be that of a woman. Even Barack's heavily padded shoulders and the silhouette of a feminine mirror cannot hide the fact that Michelle's shoulders are those of a man. Poofy dresses and big hair help to maintain the illusion of being a woman, but there are some things that simply cannot be hidden, like that protruding man finger. However, in this image, Michelle's man finger isn't the only issue. The biceps and triceps are disproportionately large, and while the dress pulls the eye downwards, it still can't shrink those shoulders. Even the children who accompany Barack and Michelle play a part in the illusion, because who would have suspected that the two girls might have been adopted? Perhaps someone should tell them that similar facial expressions cannot change the genetic evidence, but it sure is nice to see some truly feminine shoulders on the daughters. Have you figured it out yet? Are you ready for your reality check? Brace yourself. Here it is. The United States of America does not have a First Lady, but rather, the United States of America has its very first queen, its first drag queen, that is. Michelle has the hands of a man. Michelle has the shoulders of a man. Michelle has the physical proportions of a man. Michelle has a male anatomy. Hormone replacement therapy and surgical treatments cannot change the fact that every cell in Michelle's body is stamped and sealed with male chromosomes. As a woman, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind as I proclaim it from the rooftops that Michelle Obama is most certainly not a lady. I am a real woman. I have gone through school and earned a degree in criminal justice. I have learned a lot about people and why they do the things they do. While studying for my degree, I took many classes on forensic psychology. I also studied the basics of forensics and investigative skills. Throughout my travels, I have had many encounters with transgenders and transsexuals, and so with all this background knowledge and experience, it is with great confidence that I now proclaim Michelle Obama has deceived the nations. I have absolutely no doubt that Michelle Obama is in fact a man. And now, a word from my husband.
As my wife and I were working on this video, we thought about all the American soldiers who are risking their lives overseas to fight illegal wars based on the whims of their commander-in-chief. How is it that so many people in the military are prepared to go to their death so that the president can feel safe and secure in his White House? As he cuddles up every night to his male friend, who prefers to dress up as a woman and deceive everyone from behind that big smile. Many people in previous generations have laid down their lives for a noble cause. But frankly, we are quite baffled at this current point in American history and at what has become of what once was a great nation. I am speaking as one who not only has a military background, but I am also a retired law enforcement officer. The first 7.5 years of my career were spent as a police officer in Trinidad, Colorado, a place that was well known as the sex change capital of the world. While I was on patrol there, it was not uncommon to encounter people who had traveled there to seek gender reassignment surgery. I can clearly see that Michelle is a man, and I hope that you can now tell the difference as well. Time will tell how the truths that have been revealed in this video will transform America. But one thing is for certain, like it or not, Michelle Obama is now out of the closet. You wanted an abomination? You got it. But now a double woe has come to America. Behold your queen, the Queen of Sodom.
Behold your queen, the Queen of Sodom.
Behold your queen, the Queen of Sodom.
Oh, can you see?
Began with 3 aces, finished with aces. Gold medal to Serena Williams over Maria Sharapova, 6-love, 6-1, and that is a sensational gold medal performance.
Some people will be able to take just one look at this photo of Serena Williams and immediately recognize the face of a man. But for those who need a little more proof, you will find it here in this video. When Serena Williams took the podium at the 2012 Olympics, something extraordinary happened, something that is against all mathematical odds. The American flag fell all by itself right at the point in the national anthem where the flag is normally mentioned in the lyrics. It was a sign for the whole world to see, but what does it mean? Most people who have seen a picture of Serena Williams have noticed that Serena has a face that appears to be very masculine. They have also noticed that Serena Williams has an upper body that appears to be very masculine. This video will explain this common first impression of Serena Williams and much more. It will even explain why the flag fell at the London Olympics. But first, we will take a quick look at a summary of our last video. In a previous video, we used systematic, investigative, and forensic methods to establish that Michelle Obama is in fact a man who prefers to dress up and who prefers to present himself as a woman. Michelle Obama is, in fact, a man. He is a drag queen whom American taxpayers have placed on a pedestal and celebrated as a woman. Michelle carefully uses illusions created by fashion to conceal his true male proportions. Americans pay top dollar for Michelle's wardrobe, travel expenses, security detail, and every imaginable perk as Americans finance Michelle's,
Michael and I also want to...
that is, Michael's ongoing deception along with his partner, Barack, and their adopted children. Americans have raised up and celebrated these two male lovers and have turned Michael and Barack into the most powerful homosexual couple on the planet. With that video now behind us, it is now time to take a closer look at... Wait a minute, that's Conan the Barbarian. My, what big biceps Conan has. Oh no, that's not Conan, that's Serena Williams. What is a tennis player who is supposed to be a woman doing with biceps like those? Oh, he is smashing one of the strongest and most expensive tennis rackets on the planet into pieces, as though it was just a little stick. Not only does Serena have the strength of a man, but he also has some very serious anger issues as well. We will get to those later. But first, let's look at why Serena has the strength of a man. But before we do, some people watching this video might think that the photo of Serena's biceps was photoshopped. It is not surprising that some people may believe that, because so many of the images of Serena Williams that people have seen have indeed been photoshopped. Like this one, actually, the magazine editor removed the arms altogether. Or like this one, notice how the biceps and arms have been covered up. Notice also how the waist from an actual woman has been photoshopped onto this picture. And so now let's have a good look at what Serena's waist really looks like. Serena Williams has the waist of a man. Does anyone in America remember what a man looks like anymore? Perhaps this next image will help. This is Serena Williams without the facially distorting smile, and he most certainly has the face of a man. Pink nail polish on those fingernails and some plucked eyebrows cannot hide that man face. Serena Williams has the neck of a man. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever seen a neck like that on a woman? And remember, Serena is not a bodybuilder. He is a tennis player. Serena Williams has the shoulders of a man. Serena Williams has the arms of a man. Serena Williams has breasts that have been formed by hormone replacement therapy, and those breasts are located on the upper torso of a man who likes to present himself and who prefers to dress up as a woman. Serena Williams has the lower torso of a man. Nice man legs, Serena. Nice job balancing on those stilettos as well. Serena Williams has a lower torso that is heavier than his upper torso because of fat deposits that are a direct result of hormone replacement therapy. Serena Williams is not Little Red Riding Hood. He has the bone structure and overall body proportions of a man. Serena Williams is, in fact, a man who likes to deceive people into believing that he is a woman by distracting people with his big facially distorting smile, through flamboyant gestures and behavior, by deliberately raising his voice, by wearing makeup, by wearing women's clothing, and by surgically altering his male genitalia. Now, it is quite understandable how some people may be a little shocked at this point in the video. Shocked, that is, to finally hear the truth. And while in shock, some people may in fact be entering into the first stage of grief, a stage that is known as denial. There is not much this video is going to do to help you with the shock, but perhaps this next observation will help you to get through the denial phase a little faster. The most immutable and blatantly obvious proof that Serena Williams was born as a baby boy with male chromosomes is the indent point at the waist. Notice how a woman's waist has indent points on both sides above the navel, whereas a man's waist has indent points below the navel. Now, if we take a close look at the indent point on the waist of a woman walking next to Serena, we can clearly see that the waist indent point is above the navel, whereas Serena's waist indent point is below the navel and is located at the top of the hip bone. Perhaps this will help. Once again, the waist of a healthy woman naturally indents above the navel. Serena's waist indents below the navel. Perhaps Serena could show us where his indent point would be if he in fact was a woman. Thank you, Serena. Yes, it would be right about there. And because it is not, Serena Williams has the DNA of a man. Apparently, that whole gender deception thing did not work out well for him at all. Now, some people will argue that physical differences between white people and black people are responsible for the different waist indent points that are shown in this photo. And so, let's see if that is a credible argument. Here is a photo of a black woman. Notice the waist indent point is located above the navel. Once again, a photo of a black woman. Notice the waist indent point is most certainly located above the navel. In this photo, it is easy to see that no amount of muscle can change one of the most basic features of a healthy woman, the feature that in fact gives a healthy woman her natural hourglass shape, and that is the indent point that is located above the navel. And so, the argument that Serena's waist indent point is lower because of Serena's black ancestry has no basis whatsoever in reality. Remember Serena's magazine cover? Do you notice anything unusual about the waist indent point on Serena when you compare it to the only woman in this photo? Perhaps this will help. This is the typical waist indent point of a man. Serena's waist indent point is located below his navel at the top of his hip bone because Serena was born a male and in fact has been physically formed by male DNA that can be found in each and every cell of his body. He can straighten and color his hair, put makeup on his face, and wear designer skirts and bras. But Serena Williams can't hide the fact that under all those false externals is the DNA of a man. He may look like he is having feminine feelings, but science is not backing that up. Most people do not know that the human body is naturally proportioned based on a ratio between overall body height and the size of a person's head. In this illustration, you can see how perfectly proportioned a typical human body of each gender is. This illustration also reveals a description of how the shoulders are measured. A healthy person with female DNA has shoulders that are typically 2.5 times the width of the head, as this illustration demonstrates. This illustration reveals the typical shoulder width of a person with male DNA. The shoulders are 3 heads wide and the overall height is 8 heads tall. one head taller than a woman. Thanks for modeling the natural male proportions, Serena. Serena really is a model of male proportions. And that includes skull proportions. If you like, you can compare the bulge in Serena's eyebrow to the typical eyebrow bulge in the African male skull. Of course, you can then compare it to the much flatter eyebrow that is found in the typical African female skull. You will find, if you do so, that Serena has the bulge that is typically found in the African male skull. Find a photo of Serena next to an actual woman and the difference in eyebrow bulge is easy to spot. Nice hairdo, Serena. And that person with the bulging eyebrows on the left is Serena's older brother, whose name is Venus. Brother? Yes, brother. Hormone replacement therapy can cause breasts to form on a man and can even cause fat deposits on the upper thighs. But no amount of hormone replacement therapy can flatten Venus's eyebrows or move Venus's waist indent point above the navel, the place where it is located on all women. But that is most definitely the waist of a man, and for those who forgot, this is what the waist of a healthy black man with male DNA looks like. This is what the waist of a healthy black woman with female DNA looks like. And this is Venus Williams, who most certainly does not have female DNA. Nice earrings, Venus. These two brothers, a term that also means boys, took the tennis world by storm and deliberately used their male advantage against women in order to win at a woman's sport. Well done, Williams brothers. Perhaps someone should have told them when they were growing up not to pick on girls. But, in fact, they were told repeatedly the exact opposite. We will get to that point later. And now a few words from my husband.
Is it fair for a man who has arms like that to compete in a women's tennis event against a woman who has arms that are only half the size? Remember, it is a woman's sport that we are talking about here. We are not talking about competing in a transgender tournament. At this point in the video, it is now time to ask the obvious question. How did a man named Serena get on a woman's tennis court in the first place? Thanks to their father, Richard Williams, the missing part of their story has now been publicly revealed. Before the two boys were born, Mr. Williams carefully wrote down a plan that was 78 pages long. In his plan, he carefully plotted out how he was going to get out of the ghetto and become rich. He knew that his plan would be a real game changer. Out of greed, he would forever change the face of women's tennis by putting the face of a man there instead.
Born in Compton, California, one of Los Angeles' poorest suburbs, we learned that it was their father, Richard, who started them playing tennis before they were 5. He saw sport as their ticket out at the ghetto.
I had watched the tennis match on TV, and I really didn't see the match. When the match was over with, and they was giving this young lady $40,000 because she won the tournament. And I figured since I worked for $52,000 all year, and this girl make $40,000 in 4 days, I knew I was in the wrong business.
But here is the part of his plan that he kept hidden, until now that is, Richard adopted 2 boys. He immediately abused those boys by giving them girls' names and by passing them off as girls. He kept their true gender carefully hidden. He homeschooled them, and through the use of brainwashing techniques, drilled the game of tennis into them every day. Just before they reached puberty, Mr. Williams had the boys surgically mutilated so that all traces of their male genitalia would be forever hidden. He then put the boys on hormone replacement therapy so that they would grow breasts and so that they would not grow any facial hair. His plan seemed to be working until Serena's male features began to emerge from behind his feminine clothing, and people began making uncomfortable observations. His plan has now finally been exposed in this video. Now that it has been revealed that Serena's success in the sport of tennis was the result of his father's plan, this leaves us with the question, was Serena a victim of his father's plan, or was he fully aware that by going along with the plan, he was making bad choices? Perhaps Serena can give us a clue to the answer.
Okay. And growing up in LA, what was your neighborhood like?
I lived in Compton, so I grew up there. I was so young, I really enjoyed it. I didn't know the difference between good and bad. It was all so good to me. And when you're young, you really appreciate things. It's like I got to get my mindset back to that. You know, I'm appreciating everything the way I didn't know the difference between good and bad. I didn't know the difference between good and bad.
But Serena did have a moral compass, even when he was young. Serena had a conscience that told him the difference between good and bad. And before he had his genitalia mutilated through surgery, every time he went to the washroom, Serena knew that he was a boy. Even though he was given a girl's name and was told to dress up and act like a girl. Deep down inside, he knew full well that he was a boy. And so, in choosing to go along with his father's plan, Serena chose to be a deceiver. In fact, Serena consciously chose to deceive the black community and the entire world in exchange for money. Serena has now won more than $50 million in prize money and is the only tennis player playing against women in women's tennis ever to do so. And so now Serena has received his reward. This story would be incomplete without mentioning the person Serena and Venus refer to as Mother. It looks like Mother has a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. Now on to the next topic. The International Olympic Committee, the IOC, is also behind this deception. As the Olympics approached, the IOC discovered that Serena Williams was in fact born a man, who chose to alter his gender through surgery and hormone replacement therapy. And so the IOC had to make a choice. They could allow the transgender to compete under the appearance of a woman, or they could disqualify him. And so, with full knowledge of the global deception that they would be part of, the IOC allowed the transgender named Serena to compete under the appearance of a woman. Unfortunately, for athletes with female DNA, the IOC's decision to allow Serena Williams to compete in the Olympics as a woman gave the transgender an unfair advantage. It gave the transgender the gold medal on 4 separate occasions. The IOC was so blinded by their desire to deceive people that they literally threw the games. By giving a man an unfair advantage over all the female athletes who had trained all their lives to participate in a fair competition. And the competitors with female DNA were no match for Venus either. Venus and Serena stole the gold medal in doubles at 3 separate Olympics. Serena stole gold in the singles competition in 2012. And so, why is it important that why is it so important that Michael Obama be included in this video? Birds of a feather flock together. Serena, Venus, and Michael are all very much aware of the transformations they have each undergone. And together, they are knowingly presenting the black community with 2 very powerful role models, one in politics and one in sports. Michelle Obama and Serena Williams have been presented to the black community as role models of very powerful black women. To make matters worse, their physical form has been presented to the black community as a physical form that other women, especially black women, should strive to imitate. While Michael has presented himself as a model of social status and power for black women. Serena has presented himself as a powerful and successful role model for black women. Because Michelle and Serena are both men, they cannot possibly be role models for women. It is one thing for them to embrace the transsexual lifestyle, but it is quite another for them to be presenting themselves as women while knowing full well that they are intentionally deceiving others in doing so. Michael and Serena are both fully aware that on multiple occasions they have succeeded in deceiving men, especially black men, into believing that they have the DNA of women. This has gone on long enough. The black community has been deceived. The black community has been presented with these two men as role models of successful and powerful black women for long enough. The black community is being laughed at and ridiculed because they bought into the lies and deceptions that were deliberately and carefully presented to them by Michael Obama and Serena Williams. This mockery of the black community has got to stop. Serena Williams has fooled the world for long enough, and now it is time for the world to know the truth. Serena Williams was in fact born a boy. Shortly before he reached puberty, Serena Williams had his male genitalia surgically mutilated. He began hormone replacement therapy for the purpose of using his male advantage to win at a woman's sport. Serena and Venus Williams are in fact transsexuals. The International Olympic Committee knew exactly what Serena was doing when he wanted to compete, and yet they decided that promoting the LGBT agenda was far more important than giving female tennis players a fair chance at a gold medal. Serena Williams is one of the most celebrated deceivers in history, and now the whole world knows exactly what he did. Now that you can clearly see that these people are transsexuals, it is now your turn to get the word out.
Michael
is now out of the closet. Let the whole world know that their deception has now come to an end. Don't let your country down by withholding the truth like they did.
And that puts this victory in proper context as well.